Let's say you're having a conversation with someone, you're having a very deep conversation with someone, but you're on your phone, you're actually knee deep in your phone, but you can hear the person, and the person is like, you are not listening to, and you regurgitate exactly what the person just said, and the person still repeated, you're not listening to me. Now, the question is, yes, you were able to repeat exactly what the person said, but did you actually listen to the person? Now, this brings us to the difference between hearing and listening. Now, hearing is simply you hearing the words that they are saying. Listening, on the other hand, is making the other person feel heard. So it is not about your actions, it's about how you make the other person feel in that moment when they are speaking to you. How do you tell if you are actually actively listening or you are just hearing the person? The one way for you to be able to identify if you are actively listening to the person or you are hearing the person is your mind, body, soul in the conversation with the person? Are you present in the person? Holding your mobile phone even while having a conversation can be seen as you're not actively listening to the person, because the person is going to, in their mind, feel like this person is also concentrating on their mobile phone. Perhaps maybe they are expecting a very important call. So that means the person doesn't feel fully heard. Now, one thing you have to understand is that active listening is very important when it comes to communication. Remember, I talked about the various layers or the various branches of communication. And why active listening is very important is because it allows you to connect with the person. Because as human beings, we all want to be heard, and if you don't hear the person speaking to you, the person is most likely not going to hear you. So, for you to be more influential, you have to ensure that you hear the person feel heard enough for the person to allow themselves to listen to you. And that is why active listening is very, very important. Now, how do you actively listen? The rule of thumb is very simple. Ask yourself this question: this person that I'm having a conversation with, how do I ensure that after this conversation, this person would feel like, wow, that person actually listened to me? That is the absolute rule of thumb. So, whatever way you are able to do that, find a way to do that in the conversation. But in today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that you would be able to do to make the person feel like you are actually listening to them or you are present in their conversation. There's a myth that you cannot teach people how to actively listen, because how do you teach someone how to listen to someone? If you were actually present in that particular conversation, then there's no need for any tricks, tips for you to implement. But one thing you don't understand is that your ability to communicate with people is based on the experiences you've had growing up. And a lot of people haven't had experience of what it truly means to be engaged in a conversation. And because a lot of people haven't had that experience, they've grown up with a habit that is non-functional when it comes to listening to people or when it comes to making people that I am actually listening to you. There are a lot of people that they are very much present in the conversation that they're having with someone, but from their body language, you would not be able to tell. It's not because they are not present, it's just because they've learnt a habit that is ineffective in conversations. And that is why you'd see them mute. And understanding all of the strategies is not about learning how to fake active listening, it's about practicing what makes you present in a conversation with someone. Also looking at it from the perspective of what is visible, because the person needs to see that this person is listening to you. So there are majorly two ways for you to actively listen to someone. It's either you listen with your body or you listen with your words. Mixture of those two. The first we are going to talk about is how do you listen with your body. The first you could do is head tilt. So once you tilt your head towards the side, it shows that you are paying attention to what the person is saying. So that person is going to feel like, okay, wow, this person is engaged in actually what I'm saying. So head tilt. But do not tilt your head too much. Of course, that's going to be a bit too weird. But tilt your head a little bit. The next one I'm going to talk about is computer pose. Now, this is something that we talked about in the previous video about communication and the hand gestures. And computer pose is simply like this. And you can combine the computer pose with the head tilt. This is another way for you to show the person that you are actually engaged. That is you practicing being present in the conversation. That is the second one. The third one is to nod your head when necessary. And Vanessa Van Edward would always say, the nod of authority is when you give the 3 slow nods. When you give the A mistake a lot of people make is that one, they nod too much. They are always in the state of nodding. What this demonstrates is one of two things. The first is this person is being too needy or wanting to be too likable in that conversation. That's the first thing. The second is you could be perceived as someone who is acting. So don't nod too much. And also don't nod too fast. Because when you nod too fast, it means or it shows that you're trying to tell the person, be done with what you're saying. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Just imagine exactly me nodding my face very fast. And imagine the person is saying something very important and you're doing. All of a sudden, that person is going to feel like, okay, this person wants me to wrap up with what I'm saying. When you project to the person that is speaking anything that implies hurry up and complete what you're saying, then that takes you out of actively listening to that particular person, because the person is going to feel like this person isn't listening to me. So the second is to nod. But don't nod too much, because once you nod too much, it could be a bad sign. The next we'll talk about is your facial expression. A lot of people make the mistake of having a very blank facial expression when they are listening to someone. And your face is also communicated. Remember I spoke about head tilt? That is also a facial expression, head tilt. Now I just contracted my eyes, which shows I'm curious in what you're saying. Let's say someone is saying something very important and you'll be like, interesting. So me having this facial expression is like, wow, what you're saying is very interesting. So with your face, you're also able to show this person that you're actually present in the conversation that you're having with them. Your facial expression. So the question you need to ask yourself is very simple. How are you able to demonstrate or react to what the person is saying with your face? And that is how to communicate with your facial expression. Or that's how to actively listen with your facial expression. And then we've talked about how to actively listen with the movement of your body. And the next we are going to talk about is how to actively listen with your words. How to actively listen with your word is very simple. Make slight comments. Really interesting. Little words, or sometimes non-words like oh, really? All of this are ways to show that you're actually listening to that particular person. And when it comes to actively listening with your words, a very powerful way for you to show that you're engaged is also to ask a deeper question in what the person is saying. Let's say, for example, the person is talking about a holiday that they had or a vacation that they had in the beach. Ask a question that makes them go a layer down what they've given you. Oh, last weekend we actually went to the beach and it was actually amazing. You could ask, oh, really? What did you like the most about the beach experience? That is you asking a layer down. This is also another way for you to show the person that you are actively listening to the person, because for you to want to know more about the experience, it means you are present in what the person is saying. So ask a layer down. Another way, this is something that I've heard lots of leaders talk about. This is something I've heard lots of people that are experts when it comes to communication, is when it comes to having a discussion with someone who is just trying to explain to you a difficult situation that they are going through. In this case, we have the mindset of trying to jump into solution or jump into telling them what they are supposed to do, or jump into telling them that it's going to be all right. Most of the times, people don't want you to tell them that it's going to be all right. They simply just want someone to listen to whatever it is they are going through. So in this case, you have to be very situationally aware of this particular context. Because once you are in this context, what you need to do, as Vinjenguru put it, just ask the person, tell me more. What else? Please go on. Allow the person to speak. Very soon. This is something that I've learned from Simon Sinek. This is something I've learned from Vinjeng. Something I've learned from Vanessa Van Edward and a lot of communication experts. So allow them to speak. Now we've understood how to actively listen with your body and how to actively listen with your words. And those two things usually come together. You could have the facial expression and be like, oh, really? That's interesting. I had the facial expression and I had also the comments. So sometimes the words and the body comes together. But the one important thing you have to understand is that it is not just about presenting to people that you are actively listening to them. It's actually actively listening to them from within. The authenticity is very important. And an example that I always give, especially for those who have the fallacy of thinking that learning all of the strategies is actually wrong, is a gun is a weapon that can be used for harm or for good. Whether it is used for harm or whether it is used for good is dependent on the person, not the skill on how to shoot the gun and not the gun in itself. So I want you to see all of the strategies as the gun and the skill of how to shoot the gun. Whether you use the skill for good or for bad, that determines whether the skills is wrong or not. And I'll leave you with one thing. Ask yourself, when you're having any conversation with someone, very simple. If someone is listening to me the exact same way that I am listening to the person, would I feel like this person is actively listening to me? Because you have the interior, which is the authenticity. So ask yourself this very simple question. And if the answer is yes, then you're actively listening. And in the next video, we're going to talk about how do we have better conversations. And I'll see you in those videos.